I never thought I'd feel this way at 27, like I'm stuck in a loop I can't break out of. Every day, it feels like I'm walking a tightrope, trying not to fall into a pit of debts, missed opportunities, and sheer exhaustion. It's hard to explain unless you're living it, the relentless pressure of making ends meet when the world around you is moving faster than your paycheck. I graduated college with hope and plans. I wanted to travel, maybe take a year off to explore places I'd only dreamed about. I imagined myself working hard but also having the freedom to enjoy life a bit. But the reality hit so hard and so fast, it's like someone pulled the rug out from under me and I'm still falling. Jobs don't pay what they used to, or at least, they don't keep up with the rising costs. Rent keeps climbing, groceries get more expensive every week, and utilities somehow manage to sneak up just when I think I have a little breathing room. Even basic stuff like filling up the gas tank or buying a coffee feels like a calculated decision now. I remember last month, staring at my bank account, calculating if I could afford a small treat without dipping into the money set aside for bills. It's pathetic, but that's how my life looks. There's this heavy feeling of being trapped in a system that's rigged, or at least, not built for people like me. I work 2 jobs, sometimes late into the night, and still the numbers on my paycheck barely cover the basics. The gap between income and expenses grows every month. I tell myself I'm making progress, but the truth is, the mountain just gets steeper. Emotionally, it's draining. Some days I wake up feeling like I'm carrying a weight on my chest that never goes away. It's not just about the money, it's about what it represents: missed chances, constant worry, the fear of what happens if I get sick or if my car breaks down. I see friends posting pictures from weekend getaways or new gadgets they bought, and I feel this mix of envy and shame. Envy because they seem free, shame because I'm not. I've had to postpone so many dreams. The idea of moving out of my cramped apartment and into a place where I don't have to hear every argument from the neighbors feels like a luxury I might never afford. Even saving up for a vacation is a distant thought. The last time I tried, a surprise car repair wiped out my small savings. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be able to buy a home or start a family, or if I'll just keep treading water, trying not to sink. Coping isn't easy. I try to focus on the small wins: a cheap meal cooked at home, a day without any unexpected expenses, even just making it through the week without feeling overwhelmed. I've started journaling at night, which helps get some of the stress out of my head. And when I can, I reach out to friends or family, though I often hesitate because I don't want to seem like I'm complaining or falling apart. I keep reminding myself that this is temporary, even if it doesn't feel like it. That someday, I'll look back and see this as a hard chapter but not the whole story. I want to believe that the hustle will pay off, that I'll find a better job or that my side projects will take off. I still dream about opening a small cafe or traveling the world, ideas I cling to when the bills stack up and the anxiety creeps in. But for now, it's about survival. About finding joy in the little things and holding on to hope. I'm tired, yes. Frustrated and scared too. But somewhere beneath all that, there's a stubborn spark that refuses to go out. It's the belief that even in this tough economy, there's still a chance for me to build something better, step by step, day by day. Being young and feeling trapped isn't just about money, it's about the emotional toll of trying to keep up in a world that often feels indifferent. But I'm still here, still fighting, and still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26. There's this constant, nagging weight on my chest that tightens a little more every month, no matter how hard I try to breathe through it. I'm caught in this relentless cycle where expenses creep up faster than my paycheck grows, if it even grows at all. It's like the world is speeding ahead on this invisible escalator, and I'm stuck on a slow-moving treadmill, running as hard as I can just to stay in place. My days begin with the same small ritual: checking my bank balance before I even get out of bed. It's almost Pavlovian now, that little ping of anxiety when I open my app. I know exactly what's there, but I need to see it anyway. Maybe I'm hoping it's grown overnight by some miracle. Spoiler, it never does. Most months, it actually feels like the number shrinks faster than it should. Rent, groceries, gas, phone bills, student loan payments, they all stack up like a relentless tide, threatening to drown me. It's maddening, really. I graduated with decent grades, a solid work ethic, and a head full of dreams. Back then, I thought a job would be enough, that I'd pay my dues, climb the ladder, and someday, maybe, live comfortably. But the economic environment I'm living in seems designed to keep me just barely afloat. Inflation eats away at my groceries. The rent on my tiny one-bedroom in the city climbed again this year, and my landlord said that's just market adjustment. Meanwhile, my raise was a modest 2%, barely enough to cover the increase in my utility bills alone. The worst part isn't even the money itself. It's the feeling of being trapped. Trapped in a system where I work, and work, and work, but the finish line keeps moving farther away. I'm stuck in a loop where every time I catch my breath, there's another bill or unexpected expense dragging me down. A car repair last month wiped out my emergency savings. I haven't been to a doctor in over a year because copays and deductibles are scary numbers on their own. I can't even afford to replace my worn-out shoes properly. Instead, I patch them up with duct tape and hope they last a few more weeks. Socially, it's isolating. I decline invitations to dinner or drinks because even a small night out feels like luxury I can't afford. Sometimes friends don't understand why I say no so often, and I don't blame them. How do you explain the constant anxiety of knowing that your financial safety net is a frayed thread? I pretend it's because I'm just tired or busy. Honestly, sometimes I'm just too embarrassed. There's a pride I can't fully shed, even when I'm stretched thin. The emotional toll is exhausting. I feel a knot of stress every time I open a letter from the bank or hear the phone ring during work hours. I find myself lying awake at night, calculating every dollar, wondering if I missed an expense or if an unexpected bill will push me over the edge. The fear of financial ruin isn't something I chose to live with, but it's become my shadow. I cope by carving out small moments of joy, sometimes a walk in the park, a cheap coffee from a corner shop, or binge-watching old shows when I can't sleep. I've learned to be creative, cooking meals from scratch, clipping coupons, thrifting clothes, and using public transportation instead of owning a car. These small victories keep me sane, but they don't change the bigger picture. I've had to postpone so many dreams. For years, I thought I'd travel, see the world, maybe move to a bigger city with more opportunities. Instead, I find myself calculating how many months I need to save just to replace my laptop. Buying a home feels like a fairy tale for someone else, not me. Even the thought of starting a family is distant. How could I provide for another person when I'm still fighting to keep my own head above water? Sometimes, I catch myself fantasizing about what freedom would feel like. What if I didn't have to budget every single dollar? What if I could wake up without that knot in my stomach? What if I could chase my passions without the constant pressure of survival? Those moments are bittersweet. They remind me of the gap between where I am and where I want to be, a gap that feels almost impossible to bridge. Despite everything, I hold on to hope. I remind myself that this isn't forever. I try to believe that my hard work will pay off, that one day the economy might bend a little in my favor, or that I'll find a better path. Sometimes, that hope is fragile, but it's all I have. Because if I stop hoping, what else do I have left? Being young and struggling financially isn't just about the numbers. It's about feeling invisible in a world that talks about success but rarely acknowledges the quiet desperation beneath the surface. It's about learning to survive when the deck is stacked against you, trying to stay human and hopeful in a system that often feels indifferent. This is my story, honest, raw, and ongoing, and maybe, by sharing it, I'm reminding someone else they're not alone. I never thought money would feel like a chain wrapped tight around my wrists, but here I am, feeling every link pull tighter as months go by. It's not that I don't work hard, actually, that's the worst part. I work every day, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, trying to keep the bills paid and the lights on, yet somehow it never feels like enough. The economy keeps shifting, prices rising, and my paycheck just shrinks in comparison. I'm caught in this loop where my income barely grows, but expenses shoot up like fireworks, sudden, bright, and impossible to ignore. Every morning, I wake up already calculating. Should I make coffee at home or buy a cheap cup on the way? Groceries, buy the fresh vegetables that are good for me but cost more, or settle for processed, cheaper food that leaves me feeling sluggish? Rent is due soon, and the thought of it sends a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. Utilities, transportation, phone bills, they all add up, demanding more than what I can comfortably spare. I find myself scanning receipts and budgeting apps like they hold the key to escape, but the numbers never balance in my favor. It's exhausting. More than just physically, it's mentally draining. There's this constant, low-level anxiety that never goes away. The feeling that if I slip up just once, miss a payment, spend a bit too much on something small, it will all come crashing down. And honestly, sometimes I wonder if it already has, and I'm just clinging on by the skin of my teeth. I feel trapped in a system that's designed in a way that keeps me just barely afloat, never able to leap ahead. The cost of living goes up, but my opportunities to earn more don't. Sometimes I think I'm running a race where the finish line moves farther away the faster I run. Some days, the weight is so heavy it presses down on me, and I can't breathe. Like last week, when my car broke down and I had to choose between fixing it or buying groceries. Fixing the car meant I could still get to work and keep earning, but it drained the little savings I had. Skipping it meant I'd have to take buses, doubling my commute time, and risking being late or missing shifts. I chose to fix the car because I'm scared of what would happen if I didn't. But the stress didn't leave me, it followed me like a shadow. And emotionally? It's a mixed bag of frustration, guilt, and sometimes shame. I feel guilty for not being able to do more for my family or for myself. There's a part of me that wonders if I'm just not trying hard enough, even though I know that's not true. I'm embarrassed to admit how close I sometimes am to breaking down, or how often I cry in the quiet moments when no one's watching. I want to be strong, but I'm only human. This pressure gets under my skin, digs into my bones. I cope in little ways. I talk to friends who understand, though it's hard to admit the full picture. Sometimes we joke about the absurdity of our situations because laughter is the only way to keep from crying. I've taken up journaling, scribbling my frustrations and hopes onto paper, trying to untangle the mess in my mind. And when I can, I steal moments for myself, listening to music, walking in the park, dreaming about a better future that feels just out of reach. Because there are dreams, even if they seem distant right now. I want to travel, to see the world beyond this small city that's become my cage. I want to finish my degree, but the cost and time make it feel impossible. I dream of owning a home someday, a place that's truly mine, where I'm not afraid of every unexpected expense. I imagine a life where money isn't the first and last thing on my mind, where I can plan for the future without fear or doubt. But these dreams have been put on hold, shelved for later that never seems to come. I've come to realize that this isn't just my personal struggle, it's part of a bigger story, one that many of us share but don't always talk about openly. It's a story about a system that makes it so easy to feel invisible and powerless, even when you're doing everything right. But despite it all, I haven't given up. I still hope. I still fight. Because what else can I do? In the end, I want to believe that one day, this pressure will loosen. That the chains will break, and I'll be able to breathe freely again. Until then, I keep moving forward, one small step at a time, holding on to the fragile hope that things can change. Because if I lose that hope, I lose myself. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26. When I was a kid, I imagined that by this age I'd be starting to build a life, maybe a small apartment of my own, a steady job that pays enough to cover bills and leave some for fun, even if just a little. But here I am, almost a decade out of college, and I'm still counting pennies like I'm a teenager sneaking money from my mom's purse. Only this time, there's no one to bail me out, no safety net except whatever I can scrape together day to day. Every month feels like a battle I'm destined to lose. My paycheck arrives, and before I can even breathe, rent, utilities, groceries, student loans, insurance, it all sucks away the bulk of it. And the prices keep climbing. The grocery store aisles are full of items I used to buy without a second thought, now just little luxuries I have to skip. Last week, I stared at the price tag on a loaf of bread for so long that the cashier finally asked if I wanted the discount brand. I did. It was dry and barely edible, but it filled the space in my stomach. I can't remember the last time I bought fresh fruit without hesitation. The cost makes me wince. I feel like I'm trapped in a loop where expenses rise faster than any raise I get. Inflation seems like an abstract concept on the news, but it's so real when it makes my paycheck worth less every month. And asking for a raise? I'm scared of rocking the boat at work, of sounding ungrateful or like I'm not pulling my weight. My boss is friendly, but the company keeps cutting costs too. I'm not alone, I know that. But knowing doesn't make it easier. Sometimes I lie awake at night, stomach knotted with worry, imagining what would happen if an emergency struck, a car breaking down, a medical bill, losing my job. There's no savings cushion, no backup plan. Just the weight of knowing that the tiniest misstep could spiral into something worse. I've had to postpone so many things, getting a new laptop, going to a concert with friends, even the idea of moving somewhere better or going back to school feels like a luxury out of reach. It's frustrating and humiliating. I try to stay positive. I remind myself that I'm not lazy, that I'm working hard every day, juggling 2 jobs sometimes just to make ends meet. I try to find small victories, like cooking meals at home instead of eating out, which saves money and feels like a small act of control. I set tiny goals, like paying off 1 credit card or saving a little bit from each paycheck, even if it's just $5. Those small wins are the only things that keep me going. But there's this undercurrent of sadness and exhaustion that never quite goes away. It's hard to explain to people who haven't lived it, the way constant financial pressure wears you down. It seeps into everything, your relationships, your confidence, your health. I sometimes feel invisible, like my struggles are small or unimportant compared to the world's bigger problems. But they're real to me. I'm not just talking about numbers on a page, I'm talking about the stress that makes it hard to sleep, the embarrassment of turning down plans, the hope I'm forced to shelve because it just doesn't fit into my budget. I dream of a future where money isn't a source of anxiety but a tool to build something meaningful. I want to travel, to explore places I've only seen in pictures. I want to have a home that feels like mine, filled with books and plants and music. I want to go back to school someday, maybe for a master's degree or a certification that could open doors. I want to be able to help my family, to support my friends without worrying about my own bank balance. For now, I take it one day at a time. I remind myself that I'm not defined by my paycheck or my debts. I am more than my financial situation. But some nights, when the bills pile up and the fridge is nearly empty, that truth feels so hard to hold on to. Still, I keep pushing, hoping that someday soon the system won't feel so much like a trap, that the future I imagine will feel a little more within reach. I never imagined financial pressure would become this relentless weight pressing on my chest every single day. It's like trying to swim upstream in a river that keeps getting stronger, faster, and deeper. No matter how hard I paddle, I feel myself sinking slowly, drowning in expenses that seem to grow faster than my paycheck, in a system that barely gives me room to breathe. I'm 27 now. I work a full-time job, 8 hours a day, sometimes more, usually with a tight deadline or a stack of tasks breathing down my neck. My job isn't glamorous, it's a customer service role at a small tech company, nothing fancy but steady. And yet, steady is a bit of a joke when rent rises again, utilities spike, groceries cost more, and the price of gas hits a new record. Each month, it's a balancing act on a tightrope made of frayed strings, and I'm always scared of falling off. Some mornings, I wake up with a sinking feeling in my stomach, like a knot that won't untie. Bills stare at me from the table, rent, electricity, phone, student loans, the monthly credit card minimum, and I'm caught between that gnawing anxiety and this exhausting urge to just keep going. There's no grand escape plan, no magic trick that fixes the growing gap between what I earn and what I owe. I try to be careful, but it never seems enough. The paycheck comes in, and before I even blink, it's half gone. The strangest part is how the financial pressure infiltrates every corner of my life. I've stopped going out with friends as often because even $10 for a night out feels like a luxury I can't afford. Instead of meeting up, we text and share memes because that's cheaper. Birthdays are acknowledged with messages instead of gifts. Vacations, something I once dreamed about when I was younger, now feel like distant fairy tales, unrealistic and out of reach. I keep postponing those dreams, telling myself, maybe next year. But next year keeps slipping further away. Food is another battlefield. I've become hyper-aware of every dollar spent on groceries. I clip coupons, shop sales, buy in bulk, and cook at home more than ever. I know how to stretch a meal from a handful of ingredients. But sometimes, the quality suffers. I miss fresh vegetables that don't come frozen or canned, and I miss the comfort of being able to choose a meal just because it tastes good rather than because it's affordable. Eating used to be a simple joy, now it's another tightrope walk. Every day, I wrestle with this feeling of being trapped in a system that's not built for someone like me to get ahead. My income feels like a thin thread, and my expenses are like a pair of shears threatening to cut it at any moment. I know I'm not alone, but that doesn't make it any easier. I see headlines about inflation, housing crises, and wage stagnation, but those are just words. The reality is this: a paycheck that stretches thinner and thinner, a bank balance that seems to mock my efforts. Sometimes, the pressure builds until it crashes down as waves of despair. I lie awake at night, wondering if this is all there is: working, paying bills, and postponing dreams. Will I ever be able to buy a home? Will I ever have enough saved to think about starting a family or even taking a weekend trip somewhere new? Or am I destined to keep treading water in this endless cycle? Coping is complicated. I try to hold on to small things, moments of laughter with friends over a cup of coffee, reading a book that transports me elsewhere, or going for a walk in the park just to breathe. Sometimes I allow myself to feel the frustration openly, to cry when it gets too heavy. Other times, I put on a mask and pretend everything is fine because, honestly, it feels easier that way. But beneath the surface, the worry never really leaves. I also try to remind myself of hope, even if it feels fragile. I believe in the power of resilience, the small victories, the moments when I make it through another month without falling behind, the skills I'm building, the knowledge I'm gaining. I've started setting tiny financial goals, like saving just $20 a month, which sounds ridiculous but feels like reclaiming a little control. I've also considered going back to school or switching careers, anything to break free from this cycle, but the thought of adding more debt or risking stability is terrifying. In quieter moments, I think about what life might look like if the system was different. If wages matched the cost of living. If affordable housing wasn't a distant dream. If a paycheck could truly cover essentials and leave room for joy, growth, and security. What would it feel like to wake up without the knot in my stomach, to plan a future without constant financial fear? For now, I'm still here, still fighting. I'm learning to hold both the weight of my reality and the lightness of my dreams. I don't want to let the pressure define me or steal my hope. I want to believe that even in a system stacked against me, I can carve out a life that feels meaningful and safe. Maybe one day, I'll look back at this period as a chapter, hard, painful, but also a testament to endurance. Until then, I keep paddling, one exhausting stroke at a time, hoping the river eventually calms. I never imagined that adulthood would feel like a slow, sinking ship, one where no matter how hard I paddle, the waves of bills and expenses just keep rising faster than I can keep up. I'm 26 now, and if I'm honest, some days it feels like I'm barely treading water, just hoping I don't go under. This ongoing financial pressure has shaped almost every decision I make, every moment I live. It's exhausting, but it's my reality. I grew up hearing the usual advice: work hard, save, be responsible. But the world I stepped into after college looks very different from what I expected. The job I landed pays okay, but it hasn't increased much in the last 3 years, while rent, groceries, utilities, they're all climbing relentlessly. I remember when I first moved into my apartment, I thought, this is it. I'm finally independent. Now, every month I'm shocked all over again at how much my paycheck evaporates the moment it hits my account. It's a constant balancing act. Should I skip a night out with friends to save the $20? Or do I risk feeling isolated because socializing costs money? Do I buy that slightly nicer pair of shoes I need for work, or do I make do with the worn ones to save? Even food choices feel like a budget negotiation, fresh veggies versus cheaper processed stuff, cooking at home versus ordering in when I'm too tired. The financial pressure seeps into every small decision, making them feel weighty and stressful. Some days I just want to scream. I feel trapped in this system where expenses seem to grow like weeds, faster than my income can keep pace. Inflation headlines and rising housing costs aren't just numbers on the news, they're the reason I skip heating in winter or go without new clothes. It's hard not to feel powerless when the system around you feels so rigged. I work full-time, sometimes picking up extra shifts, yet I can barely get ahead. There's no magic fix, no sudden bonus or inheritance. Just me, trying to stay afloat while the current pulls harder. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. I carry a dull, constant anxiety about money, this low hum of worry that never fully fades. At night, I sometimes lie awake wondering how I'll pay next month's bills or what will happen if an unexpected expense comes up, a medical bill, a car repair, or even just a broken phone. The fear of falling behind keeps me awake, makes my chest tighten. But there's also guilt, because I know people have it worse. I feel ashamed admitting how hard it is when others say, just budget better, or make different choices. I've tried. I really have. To cope, I've had to develop a kind of emotional armor. I've learned to celebrate small victories, like finally clearing a credit card balance or cooking an affordable meal that actually tastes good. I lean on a few close friends who understand, even if they don't fully get it. Journaling helps me process the frustration and sadness. Sometimes I let myself cry because it feels like the only release. And I keep reminding myself that this is just one chapter, not the whole story. But the pressure has forced me to postpone so many dreams. I used to imagine traveling, exploring new countries, and experiencing different cultures. Now, the idea of buying a plane ticket feels like a luxury I can't afford. I dream of owning a home someday, but every time I see the skyrocketing prices, it feels more like a fantasy than a goal. I wanted to go back to school, maybe pursue a graduate degree, but the cost and lost income make that impossible right now. Even simple things, like taking a weekend off or treating myself to a nice meal, seem out of reach. Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if the economic system worked differently, if wages rose with living costs, or if basic needs like housing and healthcare were more accessible. I think about the unfairness of it all, how so many people, including myself, are stuck in this grind, pushing harder but never really moving forward. It's hard not to feel bitter or defeated. Yet, despite everything, I try to hold on to hope. I remind myself that this pressure doesn't define me completely. I still have passions, talents, and goals. I want to believe there will be a day when I'm not weighed down by financial stress, when I can pursue dreams without fear. I hope for a future where money isn't a constant source of anxiety, where stability feels possible, and where I can finally breathe freely. Until then, I keep moving forward, one tight budget and small decision at a time. Some days, it feels like survival. Other days, it's a quiet resilience, proof that even in the hardest circumstances, there's a spark that refuses to go out. I wake up every morning with this heavy weight pressing down on my chest before my feet even hit the floor. It's the same weight that's been there for years now, a silent pressure that never really lets up, no matter how hard I try to shake it off. Financial pressure. The kind that creeps into every part of your day and leaves you wondering if you'll ever catch a break. I'm 27, working a job that pays the bills but doesn't leave much room for anything else. And by anything else, I mean the little joys most people take for granted, a night out with friends, a spontaneous weekend trip, even just buying something nice for myself without a second thought. Every dollar feels like it's been stretched so thin, it's almost invisible, and yet it's the thread holding everything together. The economic environment around me doesn't help. Rent has been creeping up every year, groceries cost more than they did last month, and utility bills seem to double every winter. Meanwhile, my paycheck? It's like a stubborn echo stuck in the past, barely moving at all. Raises come slower than molasses, and inflation feels like an invisible thief stealing from my wallet every time I reach for it. Most days, I feel like I'm running on a treadmill set to impossible. I work overtime just to cover the basics, rent, electricity, food, and by the time I'm done, there's nothing left for savings or emergency funds. I've had to learn to live in constant what-if mode. What if my car breaks down? What if the heater stops working? What if something unexpected happens that I can't pay for? The fear of these what-ifs lurks beneath every decision I make. I try to be smart about money. I make budgets, track expenses obsessively, clip coupons, cook at home instead of eating out, and avoid any unnecessary purchases. But even with all that effort, it never feels like enough. My paycheck disappears so quickly that sometimes it's hard to believe it was ever there. And when I look around, it's not just me, I see the same struggles mirrored in friends and family. People working 2 or 3 jobs just to keep their heads above water. It feels systemic, like the whole system is designed to keep us running but never really getting ahead. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's this constant hum of anxiety that I carry everywhere. The stress isn't just about money, it's about what the money, or lack of it, represents. It's about the dreams I've had to tuck away because they don't seem possible anymore. I used to imagine traveling the world, going back to school for something I really love, even buying a small home someday. Now those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful, but impossibly far away. Sometimes I feel ashamed, like I'm failing at adulthood because I can't keep up with all the financial expectations. The pressure to be stable, to have savings, to invest, to plan for retirement, it all feels like a luxury for someone else. I hide my struggles behind jokes or quiet nods when people talk about vacations or new gadgets. I don't want pity, but I also don't want to be invisible. Coping with all this is a daily battle. I've found little pockets of relief in the simplest things, a walk in the park, a call with a friend who understands without judgment, or just a quiet moment with a good book. I try to remind myself that this pressure, while overwhelming, doesn't define me. I am more than my bank balance. But it's hard to feel that when the system around me constantly tells me otherwise. I've also learned to be creative with my time and resources, taking on freelance gigs, selling things I no longer need, and learning new skills online for free. It's a constant hustle, and some days it feels like I'm chasing my tail, but I keep pushing because hope is the only thing that keeps me moving forward. Looking ahead, I hold on to a fragile hope that someday things will be different. That maybe I'll find a job that pays enough to breathe without panic, that I'll be able to save for a real emergency fund, and that the dreams I put on hold won't be lost forever. I'm trying to be patient with myself, to acknowledge that survival in this environment is itself a form of resilience. But right now, it still feels like I'm trapped in a system where expenses keep growing faster than income, where every step forward comes with 2 steps back, and where hope is both a lifeline and a whispered secret I guard closely. This is my reality, messy and raw, but it's mine to navigate. And even in the struggle, I refuse to let go of the belief that a better future is possible, because what else is there to hold on to? That's the truth of it. The weight is heavy, but it's not the end. Some days, I wake up feeling like I'm already drowning before I've even gotten out of bed. It's not a dramatic drowning, no water in my lungs or frantic gasping for air, it's more like a slow, steady sinking, the kind that makes your chest heavy and your legs numb with fatigue. And the weight that drags me down? It's the relentless, invisible pressure of money, or more accurately, the lack of it. I'm 26, just out of college for a few years, with a decent job that should be enough to keep me afloat. But it's never enough. The bills, the rent, the groceries, the insurance, the phone plan, the student loans, they pile up like an unshakable stack of bricks. Each month, I try to balance the numbers in my head, counting every cent twice, but it feels like my income is stuck in slow motion while expenses keep speeding away. Inflation is this cruel beast that devours my paycheck before I even see it. It's exhausting. I've started waking up in the middle of the night, heart racing, mind running through the numbers again. Did I forget to pay the electricity bill? Did I set aside enough for groceries? What if the car breaks down? Every what if is a needle prick of anxiety that never lets me fully relax. I remember when I was a teenager, I thought by now I'd be free. Free to travel, to enjoy weekends without watching the clock, free to live in a place that didn't feel like a cramped box. But those dreams are on hold, maybe indefinitely. Instead, I'm stuck making decisions that no one should have to make in their 20s. Do I pay for a doctor's appointment or buy groceries this week? Can I risk taking the bus instead of an Uber even if it means I'll be late for work? Should I eat out less even though the cheap meals are sometimes the only way to get something warm and fast after a 10-hour day? The hardest part is feeling invisible. The economy talks about growth, jobs, markets, but it never talks about people like me, who work hard but get swept under the rug. I'm not lazy or careless. I try to budget, I cut out things I want, I don't buy new clothes or go to concerts or get coffee with friends. I avoid social invitations because I know I can't afford to say yes. And still, the expenses rise. Rent went up again this year, and I barely have anything left over after paying it. My friends talk about saving for a house, but I can barely save for a weekend trip. Sometimes I wonder what it feels like to be free of this constant worry. I see other people posting on social media, vacations, new jobs, promotions, even small luxuries, and it stings because I want that too. But more than the material things, I want the peace of mind. I want to sleep through the night without calculating how much my bank balance will look like tomorrow. Coping is hard. I've had to learn to manage the stress in ways I never expected. Meditation apps, long walks, journaling, these help, but they don't pay the bills. I find moments of joy where I can, reading, music, laughing with a few close friends, but the backdrop of financial pressure is always there, like a dull hum I can't quite tune out. Sometimes, when I'm feeling brave, I talk openly about it, hoping someone will understand. But often, the words feel inadequate, like no one really gets how crushing it is. I've had to postpone so many things. Starting a family feels like a fantasy. Going back to school for the career change I dream about? Not possible with my current income. Even buying a decent used car feels like an impossible luxury. The future I imagined when I graduated, one of progress, of upward movement, feels like it's slipping away, replaced by a cycle of just getting by. And yet, I hold on to hope. Because hope is all I have sometimes. I tell myself things will get better. Maybe I'll get a promotion or find a better job. Maybe expenses will level off. Maybe the economy will improve. I try to plan small, saving a few dollars here and there, setting tiny goals like this month I'll cook at home more or I'll avoid any unnecessary spending. It's hard to dream big when every day feels like a test of survival, but I keep trying. I want to believe in a future where I'm not trapped, where my income matches or outpaces my expenses, where I can breathe without counting every penny, where I can say yes to things without hesitation. But right now, that feels distant, like a light at the end of a very long tunnel. For anyone reading this who feels the same, you're not alone. The system feels rigged, and it's okay to admit how hard it is. We deserve to be heard and seen. And maybe one day, the world will be kinder to people like us, the young adults caught in the squeeze of rising costs and stagnant wages. Until then, I'll keep fighting, keep hoping, and keep trying to find moments of peace amid the struggle. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never thought I'd be living like this, always a step behind, barely keeping my head above water while the bills pile up and the future seems to slip further away. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, and no matter how fast I go, I'm stuck in the same place, gasping for air. I'm 27 now, working a job that pays just enough to cover rent, utilities, food, and the basics, but leaves almost nothing extra. Not for fun, not for emergencies, and definitely not for the things I once dreamed about. I remember when I was a kid, the kind of life I wanted felt so tangible: traveling, owning a home, having the freedom to make choices without worrying if I'd have enough money next month. Now, it feels like those dreams are luxuries reserved for someone else. The economy hasn't been kind. Rent hikes, grocery prices shooting up, gas prices that make me cringe every time I fill the tank, it all adds up. Every paycheck gets eaten up faster than I expect, and there's this constant anxiety gnawing at me: what if something unexpected happens? A medical bill, a car repair, or even just my phone breaking. There's no safety net, just this thin, stretched fabric of barely making ends meet. Some days, I don't even know where to start. I'll sit down with my phone, opening budgeting apps and spreadsheets, trying to map out every penny. But it's like trying to catch smoke with my hands. One week I get a little ahead, maybe put $20 in savings, but then a $100 car repair wipes it out. Another week, I skip meals to save money or avoid going out with friends, again. That social isolation stings the most. I want to be part of the world, but my wallet says no. There's a helplessness that comes with this. Watching expenses grow faster than my income feels like being trapped in a cage with invisible bars. I've taken on side gigs, driving for rideshare, freelance work, anything to push the numbers in my favor. But it's exhausting. I work 12, sometimes 14 hours a day, and still, the margin remains razor thin. It's hard to explain to people who haven't been here how hard it is to breathe when you're drowning slowly in bills. The emotional toll is brutal. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about the future, or what feels like the lack of one. Will I ever be able to save for a down payment on a home? Will I ever have the chance to travel, to explore beyond the city I know so well? I used to dream about studying abroad, about switching careers and going back to school, but those hopes have been pushed to the back burner indefinitely. Education costs money, and with debt already looming from college, I can't justify piling more on. I'm caught in a system that feels designed to keep people like me just barely afloat. The cost of living keeps rising, rent up 10%, groceries 8%, healthcare creeping higher every year, while wages stay stagnant or increase by mere pennies. It's a slow squeeze, a pressure that wears you down over time, and it's hard not to internalize it as a personal failure. But deep down, I know it's not me. It's the system. Even so, I keep pushing forward. I've found small ways to cope, moments of joy in simple things like cooking a meal at home, a walk in the park, or a phone call with a friend. I lean on my family when I can, though I don't want to be a burden. I've started seeing a counselor to help manage the anxiety, which has been a lifeline on the worst days. Sometimes, I cry. Sometimes, I scream inside. But then I remind myself, I'm still here, still fighting. There are days when hope feels distant, but it's not gone. I hold on to the idea that change is possible, maybe not overnight, maybe not without struggle, but possible. I save what little I can, looking for opportunities to improve my skills, keep learning, keep applying for better jobs. It's a slow grind, but it's something. I want people to understand this reality. It's not just about being bad with money or not working hard enough. It's about a system where wages don't keep pace with the rising cost of living, where every step forward can feel like 2 steps back. It's about resilience in the face of constant pressure. Someday, I hope to look back on this time and see it as the moment I didn't give up, when I held on to my dreams even when the world tried to silence them. For now, I keep moving, one small step at a time, hoping that someday the treadmill slows down, and I can finally get off and breathe. Until then, this is my truth: the struggle, the anxiety, the resilience, all tangled together in a life lived under the weight of financial pressure, but still full of quiet hope. I never thought money would feel like this, like an invisible weight sitting on my chest, pressing harder with every passing month. When I graduated college, I was hopeful, maybe even a little naive. I imagined life would be about building something meaningful, a career, friendships, maybe a home someday. Instead, it's mostly been about stretching every dollar to cover bills that never seem to stop rising. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up faster than I can keep pace. The truth is, my paycheck barely keeps up with the cost of living anymore. Rent has jumped twice since I moved into my tiny apartment 2 years ago, and utilities, groceries, and even my phone bill have quietly crept higher. The inflation numbers on the news feel like abstract statistics until I'm standing at the grocery store checkout, realizing I have to put half my cart back just to make the total fit my budget. I've stopped buying fresh produce regularly because it's too expensive. Instead, I buy whatever's cheapest, canned beans, frozen veggies, ramen, just to keep from spending more than I can afford. And then there are the unexpected expenses, the ones that always seem to come at the worst times. A cracked phone screen, a car repair, or even a visit to the dentist can wipe out my entire month's buffer. There is no buffer, really. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and that paycheck stretches thinner and thinner, like paper worn at the edges until it tears. Some days, I wake up with this knot in my stomach, a mix of dread and exhaustion. How will I pay my credit card bill this month? Should I skip lunch to save money? Can I really afford to fill my gas tank, or should I try to bike in the rain again? The questions never stop. It's exhausting. It's relentless. And the system feels rigged, designed for people who have a safety net, not for someone like me trying to make it with no backup plan. I've tried to tell myself it's just temporary, that if I work hard, save a little, maybe get a better job, things will get better. But every time I get a small raise, it feels like rent goes up even more. Every time I save a few $100s, some emergency comes up to drain it. It's like the economic environment is a tide dragging me under, and I'm splashing wildly but not getting anywhere. My friends don't always understand. Some of them still live with their parents or have family support that cushions their struggles. When we go out, I'm often the one who declines or suggests cheaper options. Let's just hang at my place, I say, even though what I really want is to go out and feel normal for a few hours. There's a subtle shame in that, like I'm somehow less worthy because I can't afford the same things. It makes me withdraw a little, even though I crave connection. On the worst days, I feel trapped in this cycle where every choice is about survival, and there's no room left for dreaming. I used to want to travel, to see new places, to write a novel, maybe even buy a house one day. Now, those dreams feel like luxuries I've had to shelve indefinitely. The idea of a future where I'm financially secure and free to do those things seems almost like a fantasy. But I'm trying to hold on to hope. I've started budgeting more strictly and tracking every expense, which sometimes helps me feel a bit more in control. I've also found small moments of joy in things that don't cost much: walks in the park, lending a book to a friend, cooking a simple meal at home. These things remind me that my worth isn't tied to money, even if the world feels like it is. Still, I'm honest with myself, this financial pressure shapes how I see myself and my future every day. It's hard not to feel like I'm failing when the system feels stacked against me. But maybe the most important thing is that I'm still here, still trying, still hoping for a day when the weight lifts, and I can breathe freely again. That day will come. I have to believe it. For now, I keep moving forward, one small step at a time. I never imagined adulthood would feel like this, like swimming upstream in a river that keeps getting stronger. Every day, I wake up knowing I have to stretch every dollar, every minute, every breath, just to keep from sinking. It's exhausting, and sometimes it feels like I'm trapped in a machine I can't control, one where expenses grow faster than my income and dreams slip further away with each passing month. I'm 26, working 2 jobs, and still, it feels like I'm just treading water. The first thing I do when I get my paycheck is pay the essentials: rent, utilities, groceries, phone bill. Then the rest, if there is any, goes to the car, the one thing that keeps me moving but feels like a chain around my neck because of the gas and maintenance costs. And then, sometimes, there's nothing left. Absolutely nothing. No money for a night out, no savings for emergencies, no breathing room. It's strange because I always thought that if I worked hard, I'd get ahead. But hard work doesn't pay the bills anymore. Rent here in the city is absurd, tiny apartments with paper-thin walls, priced like they're luxury suites. I share my place with a roommate just to afford it, and even then, I'm always anxious about making the next payment. The landlord never forgets. And the utilities climb every season, heating bills in winter, electricity in summer. Sometimes it feels like I'm paying more to keep a roof over my head than to live under it. Every day, I'm balancing that tightrope. I cut corners on food, buying the cheapest groceries, but even that's a gamble. Sometimes I skip meals just to make sure I have enough for the next week. Friends invite me out, but I say no because $15 for dinner or drinks feels like a luxury I can't afford. I tell myself I'm saving for something better, but that better feels like a mirage. The emotional toll is heavy. There's a constant knot in my stomach, an undercurrent of anxiety that never fully goes away. I lie awake at night, calculating, planning, worrying. What if the car breaks down? What if there's an emergency? What if I lose my job? I see people my age buying homes, traveling, starting families, but I can barely picture that life for myself. It feels like I'm stuck in a holding pattern, watching the world move forward while I'm frozen. Sometimes, I feel ashamed. Like I'm failing because I can't make it on my own. Social media doesn't help, everyone's highlight reel makes me feel smaller, like I'm missing something fundamental. But the truth is, I'm doing everything I can. I'm working overtime, picking up shifts, applying for better jobs, trying to improve my skills. Yet, the paycheck grows only slightly if at all, while rent, insurance, groceries, everything else goes up relentlessly. I remember my dreams, ones I still hold on to but have had to push aside. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond this city. I dreamed of going back to school, maybe for something creative, something I'm passionate about. I imagined buying a small house, having a little garden. Those dreams still flicker inside me, but they're buried beneath the weight of monthly bills and the harsh realities of life right now. To cope, I've learned to find small pockets of joy in cheap or free things, reading books from the library, walking in the park, calling old friends just to talk. I try to focus on gratitude for what I do have, a roof, a job, my health. I cling to hope, even when it feels fragile. I remind myself that this phase won't last forever, even if it drags on longer than I want. Still, the trap feels real. The system feels stacked against me, like I'm running a race where the finish line keeps moving further away. I want to believe that someday, I'll break free. That the struggle will lead somewhere meaningful. But sometimes, the weight of all this makes it hard to imagine a different future. I don't have all the answers, but I'm trying to keep going. I'm trying to be kind to myself in moments of weakness. Because even when it feels like I'm drowning, I'm still here. Still fighting. Still hoping. And maybe that's enough for now. Sometimes, it feels like I'm sinking, slowly, quietly, but inevitably, beneath the weight of a financial tide I can't swim against. I'm 26 now, living in a small apartment that feels too cramped and too expensive, working a job that pays just enough to keep the lights on but never enough to really breathe. Every day, I'm reminded how the numbers don't add up, how the cost of living has soared past what my paycheck can handle, and how no matter how hard I try, I'm still falling behind. I never thought it would be like this. Growing up, I imagined I'd finish school, get a decent job, and build a life that felt stable, maybe even comfortable. But the reality is a lot harsher. Rent eats up nearly half of my monthly income, groceries seem to get more expensive every time I shop, and even the little things, like a haircut, or a night out with friends, feel like luxuries I can't justify. Bills pile up in my mailbox, each one a reminder that I'm barely keeping up. Some days, I feel exhausted before I even leave the house. I lie awake at night, running through mental calculations, how much I spend on transportation, how much I have left for food, when I can afford to replace my worn-out shoes. I know I should budget better, but when the numbers are so tight, every expense feels like a choice between survival and small comforts. I often skip meals or eat less, hoping to stretch my grocery budget, but it takes a toll on my energy and mood. There's this overwhelming sense of being trapped in a system designed to keep me just afloat enough to stay in the race, but never ahead. Expenses keep rising: rent, utilities, healthcare, while wages barely budge. Sometimes, I scroll through social media and see peers moving into nicer apartments, traveling, buying new things. I'm happy for them, but it's also a sharp reminder of how far I feel from that life. I wonder if they know what it's like to count every cent just to pay rent, or if they've had to choose between fixing their car or buying groceries. Emotionally, it's exhausting. The constant stress gnaws at me, making it hard to focus or feel hopeful. I'm proud of how hard I work, but it feels like no matter what I do, the system is rigged against me. The phrase living paycheck to paycheck isn't just a cliche, it's my reality. The fear of an unexpected expense, a medical bill, a broken appliance, is a shadow that looms large, because there's no safety net beneath me. Coping with this pressure means developing a kind of resilience, but also sometimes pretending I'm okay when I'm not. I try to find small moments of joy: a walk in the park, a call with a friend, a homemade meal, things that don't cost much but remind me that life can still have light. I write in my journal, pour out frustrations, and sometimes cry when the loneliness and worry get too heavy. I've learned to be resourceful, clipping coupons, hunting for sales, taking public transportation even when I'm tired, but it never feels like enough. There were dreams I had once, vivid and bright: traveling to new countries, going back to school for a degree I really care about, saving up enough to buy a home someday. Those dreams now feel distant, almost naive. I've had to postpone or reframe them, focusing instead on surviving month to month. I try not to think about how the longer this goes on, the harder it will be to catch up. But sometimes, in quiet moments, the weight of what's been lost, or delayed, hits hard. I hope for change, but sometimes it feels like hoping is the only thing I can do. I wish the economy worked for people like me, not just the lucky few who have stable wealth or high-paying jobs. I want a life where I don't have to agonize over every expense, where I can dream big without guilt or fear. I want to wake up feeling secure, not trapped. Still, I keep going. I remind myself that this moment, as tough as it is, won't define my entire life. I try to believe that better days are ahead, even if I can't see them clearly yet. For now, I hold on to the small victories: a paid bill, a healthy meal, a supportive friend, and keep trying to make a way forward, one day at a time. Being young and financially strapped is hard in a way that's hard to explain. It's not just about money, it's about dignity, hope, and the feeling that you matter. And even when the system tries to tell me I don't, I'm here, still fighting, still dreaming. I never thought I'd be this tired. Not just physically, but the kind of tired that sinks into your bones, the exhaustion that comes from a place deeper than sleep deprivation. It's the weariness of wrestling with a life that feels like it's designed to keep me just barely afloat, always behind the curve, always scrambling. The kind of exhaustion born from the relentless pressure of money slipping through my fingers no matter how hard I try to hold on. I'm 27 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has felt like this invisible leash around my neck. Growing up, my parents worked hard, but there was always this underlying worry at home about bills, about whether things would be okay next month, whether the roof would hold during the next storm, or if the car would make it through the winter. It was normal for me, this tension threading through every conversation. I thought I'd be different. I thought I'd break free. But here I am. The economic environment today is brutal. Every day, I see prices rise like a tide pulling me under. Rent, groceries, utilities, transportation, everything costs more. My income? It's stuck, stagnant. A small paycheck that stretches thinner and thinner with every passing month. I work full-time, putting in long hours, but it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that speeds up the moment I get comfortable. I get a little raise? Inflation swallows it whole. The cost of living grows faster than I can keep pace, and the gap between what I earn and what I owe feels like a canyon that just gets wider. My mornings start with that heavy sinking feeling, looking at my bank account, calculating if I can afford the bus pass or if I'll have to walk an extra mile to save those few dollars. Deciding if I can grab a coffee or if that's a luxury I need to skip this week. Evenings are no better. I lay awake worrying about rent, about that medical bill I haven't been able to pay off, about the groceries I had to skimp on so I could cover my phone bill. Every decision feels like a compromise. I've had to learn to say no to things that used to bring me joy. Going out with friends has become a rare treat instead of a weekly habit. I postponed therapy sessions because I can't afford the co-pays. I stopped replacing my worn-out shoes, patched up my clothes instead of buying new ones. I dream of travel, of buying a car, of having a little apartment that feels like a home instead of just a place to sleep, but those dreams feel farther and farther away with every month that passes. Emotionally, it's a heavy load. There are days when I feel invisible, like I'm shouting into the void. Friends don't always understand why I can't join them or why I'm always so stressed. I don't blame them. How do you explain the constant pressure that's never quite visible? The shame that creeps in when you have to admit you're struggling financially, even though you're working as hard as you can? It chips away at your confidence, at your sense of self-worth. But I also feel trapped in the system. It's like this machine designed to keep me running in place. The jobs available pay just enough to cover the basics, but not enough to build a safety net. Every emergency is a crisis, whether it's a car breaking down or a surprise medical expense. And no matter how many times I tighten my belt, it never feels tight enough. The system isn't built for people like me to thrive, it's built to keep us juggling, balancing, barely scraping by. I've learned to cope in ways I never imagined. I've become fiercely resourceful, hunting for deals, using community resources, relying on mutual aid groups when things get really tight. I keep a spreadsheet of my expenses, track every dollar like it's a precious gem. Sometimes, I let myself dream quietly, imagining a future where I don't have to worry about rent coming due, where I have a cushion for emergencies, where I can save for a future that feels secure instead of fragile. But those dreams are fragile too, like glass, easily shattered by the next unexpected bill or rent increase. There's a bitter kind of hope in that. I'm not giving up. I keep applying for better jobs, taking classes when I can afford to, hoping to find a path that leads out of this cycle. I remind myself that I'm not alone, even if it feels that way sometimes. There are millions of people fighting the same fight, stuck in the same system, dreaming the same dreams. Maybe that shared struggle is what keeps me going, even on the hardest days. Financial pressure is more than just numbers on a bank statement, it's a daily battle that wears down your spirit, changes how you see the world and yourself. But I'm still here, still pushing forward. And maybe, just maybe, one day the scales will tip. Until then, I'll keep moving, one careful, measured step at a time. I wake up every morning with a knot in my stomach, a familiar heaviness pressing down on my chest before I even open my eyes. It's not like I'm afraid of the day ahead, it's more this gnawing anxiety that comes from knowing how fragile everything feels. I'm 26, working a full-time job that pays just enough to cover rent, utilities, and the bare minimum of groceries, but never enough to breathe easy. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while my legs get heavier and heavier. The harder I run, the further I feel from where I want to be. I remember a time, not that long ago, when I had dreams that felt possible. I wanted to move out of the cramped apartment I share with 2 roommates, buy a car, maybe even start saving for something bigger, college debt, a trip, or a safety net for the future. But with every month, those dreams shrink, retreating into the background as bills pile up and prices climb. The economic environment today feels like a storm that never clears. Rent has gone up twice since I moved in 2 years ago, and my paycheck barely budges. Groceries cost more every week. I've watched the price of gas rise so much that just filling my tank feels like a luxury. My phone bill, insurance, utilities, it all adds up, and none of it is optional. These are not just numbers on a spreadsheet, they are daily, unyielding pressures that dictate every choice I make. There's this constant calculation running through my head. Should I buy the cheaper brand of cereal, even if it tastes like cardboard? Should I skip that doctor's appointment because the copay is a hit to an already tight budget? Should I take on an extra shift, knowing it will leave me exhausted and drained but might mean a bit more money next month? Every decision feels like a balancing act on a tightrope strung over an abyss of debt and stress. The emotional toll is enormous, even if it doesn't always show on the surface. I try to keep it together around friends and family, but inside, it feels like I'm carrying a weight no one can see. There are nights when I lie awake, heart pounding, wondering how I got here. Sometimes I feel trapped, like I'm stuck in a system designed to keep people like me from moving forward. Expenses climb faster than wages, and the things I thought would be stepping stones to a better life have become distant mirages. I've postponed so many things: a vacation, new clothes, dental work I desperately need, even therapy sessions that could help me cope better. Instead, I'm left with this gnawing sense of loss, like I'm sacrificing pieces of myself just to survive. I miss the freedom to dream without guilt or fear. I miss feeling like I'm building something stable, something I can be proud of. But I'm not without hope. I hold on to small things that remind me there's more beyond this daily grind. Sometimes, it's a text from a friend checking in. Sometimes, it's a quiet moment where I let myself imagine a different future, one where I'm not just scraping by but thriving. I picture a life where I can afford to say yes to opportunities instead of always saying no, where I can invest in myself, my happiness, and my growth. To cope, I've learned to be fiercely resourceful. I clip coupons, meal prep to avoid expensive takeout, and limit my outings to the essentials. I lean on a tight circle of people who understand without judgment. And I try to remind myself that this is temporary, even when it feels like the walls are closing in, that someday, the scales might tip. It's hard to admit all this because there's a stigma around struggling financially, especially as a young adult. There's this expectation that by now, I should have it together, be independent, successful. But the truth is, many of us are just barely holding on, navigating a world that seems to demand more than we can give. So here I am, trying to keep going, day by day, paycheck by paycheck. I don't have all the answers, but I do have the courage to keep trying. And maybe, someday, that will be enough to break free. Because despite everything, I still believe in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Every morning, I wake up to the same feeling, a tight knot in my stomach that's been there for years now. It's not just stress, or a bad day, it's something deeper, something that clings to me like a second skin. Financial pressure. It's the shadow that follows me everywhere, shaping every choice I make, whispering doubts in my ear, and stealing pieces of my hope bit by bit. I'm 27, working a job that barely pays enough to cover rent, utilities, and the endless parade of bills that flood my mailbox every month. The economy feels like a tidal wave I can't swim against. Rent keeps going up, groceries cost more than they did last year, and even the bus fare has edged higher. Meanwhile, my paycheck stays stubbornly the same, sometimes, if I'm lucky, a tiny raise that barely makes a dent in the growing pile of expenses. It's exhausting. I feel like I'm trapped in a system designed to squeeze every last cent out of me while offering little room to breathe or grow. Every decision I make is a balancing act, a constant negotiation between necessity and what I used to think was possible. Do I buy the cheaper brand of milk, even though it tastes worse? Do I skip the doctor's appointment and hope the cough goes away? Should I cut back on electricity to save on bills, knowing it'll make my apartment colder and darker? I've become hyper-aware of every dollar, every cent. It's not just about survival, it's about preserving some semblance of dignity and hope, even when the numbers on my bank app make me want to close it and pretend it doesn't exist. Sometimes, I catch myself dreaming. Not big dreams anymore, those felt like luxury I couldn't afford. Instead, I dream about small things, like finally being able to replace my worn-out shoes without guilt or eating a proper dinner without checking the price tags in my head. But even those small hopes get pushed further away every month, buried under rent hikes and unexpected expenses. The fridge broke last month, and fixing it means eating out or worse, going hungry sometimes. I tell myself it's temporary, but temporary has stretched into years. Emotionally, this pressure is a weight I carry alone. Friends and family ask why I don't come out as often, or why I'm always tired, but it's hard to explain that my mind is constantly running through budgets and bills, trying to patch the holes before they flood me completely. I feel isolated, even in a crowd. The system that's supposed to support people like me feels indifferent, sometimes hostile. Assistance programs have long waiting lists or complicated requirements. It's easier to just keep my head down and grind away. There's a strange kind of shame wrapped up in this too. Shame for not being able to make it, for having to say no to invitations, for sometimes buying used clothes or going without things others take for granted. It feels like I'm failing at the basic adulting test, the one everyone else seems to pass with ease. But deep down, I know it's not just about personal failure, it's about a broken system that makes it nearly impossible to get ahead unless you start with more. Some days, I cope by retreating into small pleasures, a walk in the park, a quiet evening with a good book, or a call with a friend who understands without judgment. These moments are lifelines, reminders that I'm still human beyond the numbers. Other days, I fight the urge to give up entirely, to stop trying to climb a ladder that's missing rungs. What I want, more than anything, is stability, a chance to breathe without anxiety clawing at my chest. I want to save enough to move somewhere better, maybe even travel or take a course that could open new doors. I want to feel hopeful again, to dream without the constant background noise of financial dread. But for now, those dreams sit on a shelf, dusty and distant. Living under this pressure teaches you resilience in ways you never asked for. It sharpens your priorities and forces you to appreciate the small victories, a bill paid on time, a week without overdraft fees, a moment of peace in the chaos. But it also takes a toll, chipping away at joy and replacing it with a quiet exhaustion that's hard to shake. I tell my story not because I want pity, but because I want it heard. Because maybe, if enough of us speak up, the system will start to listen. Maybe then, young people like me won't have to carry this weight alone, and we can start dreaming bigger again, not just about surviving, but about truly living. For now, I keep going, one day at a time, holding on to whatever hope I can find in the cracks of this hard, relentless reality. I still remember the moment when the bills started to pile up faster than I could catch my breath. It wasn't a sudden collapse but more like a slow, creeping weight pressing down on my chest every day, every week, every month. I'm in my late 20s now, and what I thought would be the years where I'd build my life, the young adult phase full of excitement, opportunity, and growth, has felt more like a never-ending grind just to keep my head above water. I work full-time, juggling a job that pays decently enough on paper, but somehow, the numbers never add up. Rent feels like a monthly shackle. It's not just the price of my small, one-bedroom apartment, which has shot up relentlessly over the past few years. It's the hidden costs, too, the utility bills that spike in the summer and winter, the surprise fee on my bank statement I can barely afford to dispute, the groceries that cost more than they did last month, and the ever-present emergency fund that feels like a cruel joke because emergencies keep coming, and my savings keep shrinking. Every paycheck is a carefully planned balancing act. I have a spreadsheet where I track every dollar, from fixed expenses like rent and phone bills to variable ones like groceries and transportation. Still, it feels like an impossible puzzle because the cost of living inflates faster than my paycheck increases. Promotions and raises come so rarely, and when they do, they barely scratch the surface of what I'm losing to inflation and rising costs. It's this growing gap between expenses and income that traps me. Like running on a treadmill that speeds up every few months, no matter how fast I push my legs, I'm stuck in place. There are days when I wake up and the weight of it all feels suffocating. I lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, wondering how I ended up here. I think back to my dreams, things I imagined I'd have by now. A stable home I could call my own, a car that didn't leak oil every other week, maybe even starting to save for a trip abroad or putting a little away for a future I can't quite picture yet. Instead, I'm endlessly postponing these dreams. Every dollar I make has to go toward the essentials. If I want to avoid the crushing anxiety of debt, I have to cut back on almost everything else. Eating out used to be a rare treat. Now, it's practically a memory. Social outings have become a careful calculation. Will meeting friends for coffee this week mean I have to skip buying groceries next? I say no more than yes, and even then, the guilt follows. I hate feeling like my financial situation isolates me, but it does. It's hard to explain that it's not because I don't want to join in, it's because I literally can't afford it. I sometimes catch myself lying or avoiding invitations, not wanting to explain the real reason or sound like I'm making excuses. I try to cope the best I can. I read a lot about personal finance, hoping to find hacks or strategies that can help me outsmart the system that seems designed to keep people like me just barely afloat. I've learned how to budget tightly, use coupons, shop sales, and meal prep like a pro. I've cut down on my phone plan, switched to cheaper brands, and canceled subscriptions that once felt like necessities. But even with all this, the relief is temporary. What hurts the most is the emotional toll. There's a constant background noise of worry, the kind that doesn't go away when the bills are paid or the rent is covered. It's the dread of the next unexpected expense, the car repair, the medical bill, the friend who suddenly needs help. That stress seeps into every part of my life. Sleep is restless. I'm always on edge, scanning my bank account like it might suddenly disappear. The pressure chips away at my confidence and self-worth. It's hard not to internalize this struggle as a personal failure, even though I logically know it's not. Sometimes I think about what it would be like if things were different, if wages kept pace with the cost of living, if housing wasn't a luxury, if I had a little breathing room to just be. I imagine waking up without that tight knot in my stomach, or being able to say yes to opportunities without first counting the cost. I dream of the freedom to invest in myself, to take a class or start a hobby, to save for a future that isn't just about survival. But for now, the reality is that I'm trapped in this system where everything I earn seems to be swallowed up by expenses that rise faster than I can keep up. It feels like a rat race where the finish line keeps moving further away, no matter how hard I run. And yet, I keep going, because what choice do I have? I remind myself daily that this isn't permanent, even if it feels like it sometimes. That one day, the balance might shift. That maybe, with enough grit and patience, I'll finally be able to breathe easy and live a life that feels full, not just feasible. Until then, I hold on to hope. Hope that the sacrifices I make now will pay off. Hope that I'll find a way out of this pressure cooker of financial stress. Hope that my postponed dreams aren't lost forever, but just waiting for the right moment to come alive again. Because deep down, despite the wait, I still believe in the possibility of better days ahead. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.